How's it going everyone, it's Vivi and welcome to another Ratchet Clank video. Should we call this a rumor at this point, or is it really getting tiresome? Colin Moriarty, ex-IGN writer and kinda funny games guy, again states, or rather feels like, there will be a new Ratchet Clank game. However, this time he feels like it's going to be a PlayStation 5 launch title. Already there, I can't say I'm surprised. It's likely to be a possibility. PlayStation 5 is confirmed to release later this year, during holiday 2020. So why not call it Ratchet Clank 2020? Sounds like a plan, right? We don't need Moriarty's statements and stuff like that to believe this information. Heck, this isn't even the first time he says so. He said it back in August 2019 as well, during a Welcome to the Family PlayStation's podcast. At 18 minutes and 30 seconds of the video, he says the PS5 will get a new Ratchet & Clank game. And the same goes for Spider-Man, for sure. Marvel's Spider-Man is for sure getting a sequel. There is no doubt about that one. The same applies for April 2019, that we hadn't seen the last of Ratchet & Clank. However, back then he was thinking of the PlayStation 4. This time, during a recent episode of Sacred Symbols Plus exclusive on Patreon, this is what he had to say. We're going to get a Ratchet & Clank in between Marvel's Spider-Man and its sequel, also developed by Insomniac Games on PlayStation 5. I feel like that's going to be a launch game, the Ratchet & Clank game that's long been in development at Insomniac. First things first, why should we even start believing this guy, you might ask? He had said the same thing back in April 2019, correct? Yes, he said the same thing, apart from the PlayStation 5 part. Well, I'm not saying you should believe him, but this statement to me sounds the most realistic at this point. I'm just saying, Ratchet & Clank 2016, as I've said time and time again, it's the best-selling Ratchet & Clank game developed by Insomniac Games. Estimated sales, over 2 million physically. And Sean Layden, ex-chairman at Worldwide Studios, said that Ratchet & Clank is vital. Let's not forget about that one. That part is very important. Other than the whole realistic way of thinking about this whole situation, let's not forget, Moriarty is close friends with Insomniac Games. During his review of Marvel's Spider-Man PS4, he himself said, "I'm friends with the crew at Insomniac Games." He also wrote an article back in 2012 talking about the history of Insomniac Games. If anyone knows Insomniac's way of handling things, how they work, how they plan things, I'm willing to give Moriarty credit for that. Yes, he thought Ratchet & Clank was planned for the PlayStation 4 at first, but do recall, back in April 2019, the PS5 was yet to get a release confirmation. Plus, back in April, Sony was yet to acquire Insomniac Games. So I'm not going to quickly dismiss what Moriarty thought back then. The most likely scenario, yes, Ratchet & Clank was initially planned for PlayStation 4, but with the PS5 on the way, and how Sony called Ratchet & Clank basically a very important series when it comes to sales, well, it's high chance that Ratchet & Clank simply moved over to the PlayStation 5. Also, don't forget about PS5 dev kits, developers kits. Who knows when Insomniac Games got their hands on one? Now, I do believe they have one right now. They haven't said anything and it's normal. Developers don't really talk about dev kits. But what dev kits do is basically they test the hardware to see what kind of stuff they can develop on it. If anything, Ratchet & Clank 2020 might be cross-gen. If I ever use the word multi-platform, what I mean by that is PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. I'm not talking about different consoles, don't get confused. But yeah, cross-gen is a better word. A new Ratchet & Clank game sounds awesome. But a launch game? I mean, we still gotta buy a new console at the end of the day. But hey, you know what sounds even better? A sequel to Into the Nexus. Am I wrong to say that perhaps the majority of the community prefers a sequel to that game? You know, the old timeline? By the way, the old timeline is still canon. Insomniac Games hasn't forgotten about that timeline. They still acknowledge its existence. Heck, let me bring up a quote surrounding the topic of canonicity. An interview was held with studio director Chad Desern. This is what he had to say. Regarding the 2016 game, since the game is a retelling of the first game, does it render the original story non-canonical? Or is it simply a different perspective on the events of the first game from Quark's point of view? The game is told from Quark's point of view. It matches the film story, but Quark adds commentary, and it's his vision of events to a certain extent. At the same time, We think that the main story beats are there. The big tentpoles, like Ratchet's origin as a Lombax orphan, Clank's origin as a factory defect, are still there. And none of it invalidates later games. We didn't set out to rework the canon. In other words, the future series is still canon with everything else subsequently, assuming part of the canon as well. The new game is just more of a cleaner retelling of sorts. Don't freak out. Also, our lovely friends over on the Ratchet Clank Wiki shared responses related to the topic of canonicity by James Stevenson, community director. Long story short, folks, we got a Ratchet Clank movie, and we got a game based off it. Just look at it that way, alright? Another question. Moriarty states that Ratchet & Clank, this launch game for PlayStation 5, has been in long development. The words long development bring me back to this rumor on Reddit. I did make a video covering that one. That rumor stated that a new Ratchet & Clank game would be a sequel to the future saga, how it's been in development since the launch of the 2016 game. I'm not saying that rumor is true. I have a hard time believing it, in fact. The thing about that one, you know, a game being developed since the launch of the 2016 game, well, if we go back to the 2016's game Postmortem by Insomnia Games, they spoke in such a way that tells us they still weren't sure where to go next with the series after its success. At this moment, we have no idea. We're walking around with VR headsets strapped to our faces. This was back in 2016. Look, the word development can be vague. Development could perhaps mean they were simply brainstorming for a very long time. Does development mean actually fully building the game? We can't say. I'm leaning more towards them brainstorming for a good while. If I want to believe that rumor on Reddit, I'd like to believe that they were at least starting to brainstorm about the next game. But them fully working on it, actual models, planets, mechanics, I feel it was too soon. But them working on a new Ratchet & Clank game now, I'd like to believe that. Another thing, there's been apparently this popular PlayStation 5 rumor circulating on the net, talking about its price and basically launch games. Ratchet & Clank is not on there, so you might think this PlayStation 5 game, Ratchet & Clank, as a launch title is false. Look, rumors are rumors at the end of the day. Even if this leak right here turned popular, it can still be false. Just because we don't have Ratchet & Clank PlayStation 5 listed, doesn't mean it's not happening. As a bonus, Moriarty himself doesn't even believe this list. MLB The Show 21 is what really got him to dismiss this leak surrounding the PlayStation 5. This was mentioned during podcast number 83 of Sacred Symbols. If you want more, well, here it is. Today, PlayStation 5's official page reveals that Sony is not ready to reveal the PS5 just yet. So February brought up, and that popular rumor doesn't seem to be it. So naturally, many will no longer believe that rumor. Then so be it. So now let's imagine Ratchet & Clank as a launch title on the PS5. When can we expect a trailer? Into the Nexus, going back, the last game before the reimagining, we had an announcement trailer 4 months before the launch of the game, which was in November 2013. So you might think, maybe E3? No, Sony will not be attending E3 2020. My guess would be we could see a new Ratchet & Clank trailer during one of Sony's State of Plays, whenever that happens. Or they might give us a teaser when the PS5 gets revealed. Some people believe the PS5 is now gonna get revealed next month? I mean, who knows? Everything is just a bunch of rumors right now. So imagine if Ratchet & Clank is truly gonna return as a launch title, then we could expect a trailer sooner than we think. Ratchet & Clank 2016 got its first trailer back in June 2015. Almost a year prior to its launch, April 2016. So a trailer coming soon, I mean, hey, keep your eyes open, everyone, okay? But at the same time, control your expectations, alright? So with that being said, guys, this is it for the video. So as usual, leave your own questions, thoughts, theories, or anything like that in the comment section below. And as always, I've been Vivi, and thank you so much for watching.